Governor, are you ready to take the oath?
I am. I, William Jefferson Clinton, do solemnly swear
that I will faithfully execute the office of President of the United States.
That I will faithfully execute the office of President of the United States.
When I left Arkansas for the last time on my way to be inaugurated, I was full of mixed feelings. And it reminded me of the little speech that Abraham Lincoln made from the train when he left Illinois for the last time to go to Washington. I was full of hope and anticipation. I was eager to get to work. But I knew I was leaving a very important chapter of my life behind, and that in a way it would never be the same again when we came home. It was a very emotional time for us, and I think it was complicated by the fact that I've learned from my own lifetime of history that the president cannot know what will happen in his term that will either turn the tide of history or change the course of his own life. I told someone the other day that there have been a lot more funerals to this job than I thought there'd be. And it's had a profound effect on me and on Hillary and on the work that we're doing. I lost my mother and my father-in-law, my friend Vince Foster. I lost my friend and my incredibly important advisor, Ron Brown. It left a huge hole in my working life as well as my personal life. And of course, just the tragedies, the attack on our soldiers in Saudi Arabia, our Air Force personnel, Oklahoma City.
What you have done is demonstrated to a watching and often weary and cynical world that good can overcome evil, that love can outlast hate, that the light of human life can shine on through the most terrible darkness.
These things were not things that I ever could have anticipated when I became president, but dealing with them is a part of my job as president and a part of my responsibility as a person, and I've done the best I could with it.
Well, I think the president has done a tremendous job on what he said he would do when he came into office. But even more than that, I think he has set a real example for the country of a person who combines the best of his heart and his head. I've never understood how anyone could care as deeply as he does, honestly care about people, and yet have an intellectual grasp of the job that is beyond anything I can imagine. But it's because he brings to his responsibilities an extraordinary compassion as well as competence, and I think people know that. Every day that goes by, I see him doing more and more to try to fulfill his vision of the kind of country that he wants for our daughter and for all children. And I just think we're very lucky to have him at this point in our history. And I say that as a totally objective observer.
Everybody knows there's only one person in the world that can really tell the truth about a man, and that's his mother-in-law. I admire him so much for many of the same reasons that other people do, but I love him for the way that he's defended and loved my daughter. I would love to have had, while I had a really good marriage, I would love to have had the kind of intellectual partner that I could bounce off these great ideas, and the independence of thought, the sharing of experience, and the kind of good-natured ribbing and fun that they have with each other. Because they're both very complicated people, but their relationship is not. They just simply love each other. It's really a joy to see your daughter, your son-in-law, and your grandchild in that kind of environment.
Chelsea normally doesn't want to be involved in public affairs very much because she likes her privacy. But when she insisted on coming through the receiving line at the Irish State Dinner, and when I looked up and saw her sitting at the State of the Union with Hillary, I thought to myself, you know, she really is growing up. And I didn't like that altogether, but I realized that's the job of every parent. I was kind of bursting with pride when Chelsea went to Pakistan and India and the other countries in South Asia with Hillary. You know, the idea that she could do that and take it in and learn from it and also contribute very much to the mission. I was so proud of that, and I'll always remember that in my mind as a big milestone in her development.
Hi! Fancy meeting you all here!
We've maintained a level of family intimacy with Chelsea that I'm very proud of and very pleased by and very, very grateful for. I'm gonna miss her when she's gone. We've had 2 new additions to our families. We have 2 nephews. Hillary's brother Tony and his wife Nicole have a son named Zach, and my brother Roger and his wife Molly have a son, Tyler. And it's an incredible thing for me to look at Tyler, and it reminds me so much of Mother. I mean, every time I look at him, I think of Mother. It's a wonderful way of still having her here. It also is a real reality check for me, even in, you know, and if I'm having a bad day, if I could see one of them or even look at their pictures, kind of connects me to what I'm really doing here.
I think what keeps the president and Hillary going under these personal attacks that have been occurring lately is that, first of all, they know what they know to be their truth, and they're not going to be persuaded by other people's perceptions of them. They know who they are. They've been really grounded, and they have faith in themselves. They have the truth on their side, actually, is the way I like to think about it.
One of the things that I do not like about public life in America today is that it is consistently too partisan and too personally harsh. There's a great deal of difference between saying, I have an honest difference of opinion with my opponent or with the other party about the direction our country should take, and here's what it is, and here's why I think I'm right and why I think they're wrong, and saying, my opponent's no good, and my opponent has no character, and my opponent doesn't have good values. You know, most of us were, my age anyway, were raised in an environment where our parents would have whipped us if we'd talked like that about another person when we were kids. We were raised not to look down on other people, not to think we were better than other people. We were raised to worry about our own character and try to perfect our own personal lives, but to treat other people with some measure of respect. I mean, Senator Dole and I, for example, we differ on a lot of things, but I believe he loves his country. I mean, here's a guy that was terribly wounded in World War II, could have completely given up on America, and instead he effected a miraculous recovery by force of will and devoted his life to public service. I don't see why I should have to deny all that just to run against him, but there's plenty of things we disagree on, and that's what the election ought to be about, not some attempt to demean your opponent. I think that's a bad thing, and I hope that by the time I finish my career as president, that perhaps I can have contributed to a somewhat greater civility in America and focusing more on the issue differences, because there's lots to debate. We're going into a dramatically different time. We ought to have a big debate about it, but we don't have to diminish the humanity of our adversaries to do it.
Ladies and gentlemen, the President of the United States and Mrs. Clinton.
Well, you can't help becoming personally attached to leaders from other countries when you work with them and you feel that you can trust them and you feel that they have great dreams and hopes, noble values, and that they're genuine partners in the struggle for a better future. You get attached to people like that. Prime Minister Rabin was a very great man, and when he was killed, it was a very hard day for me and for people who dreamed of peace in the Middle East.
My first daddy died in the Troubles. It was the saddest day of my life. My Christmas wish is that peace and love will last in Ireland forever.
The little girl in Northern Ireland, Catherine Hamill, I never will forget her. She introduced me with a young man, and one was Catholic, the other was Protestant.
And now, ladies and gentlemen, I'd like to introduce the President of the United States.
As I have traveled around the world, representing the United States, and meeting all kinds of people from heads of government to citizens in the street, the thing that has touched me is the impact that our nation has in the imagination of other people throughout the world.
And I told Hillary I have a daughter, Hillary. So I'm really excited about the whole thing.
He met everybody. I shook hands with him 3 times.
And the potential we have to lift the hopes and stiffen the spines of freedom-loving people all over the world. To me, that's the real power the United States has, the ability to take the blessings that we have of military power and economic power and try to apply them to an idea that people can live together in spite of their differences. And knowing that that is not only the morally right thing to do, but it's also very much in our interest to do that.
I've never known anyone who works as hard as Bill Clinton. The schedule he keeps is backbreaking. It really is unbelievable. He'll go to 3 cities in a day, shake hands with thousands of people, work on policies, make very difficult, challenging decisions throughout the day, work until late in the night. 6 a.m., he's up and at it again. What energizes Bill Clinton is going out and being with the American people. And when he comes back, he's always reinvigorated by the fact that they know he's doing it on their behalf. He is their champion, a champion for their children. That is Bill Clinton's true mission.
This country did not get here by permitting itself to be divided at critical times, by race, by religion, by region, by income, you name it.
I think our purpose has to be to keep the American dream alive for all the people in this country into the 21st century, and to make sure we cross the threshold of the next century still the strongest country in the world, still a force for freedom and peace and democracy at home and around the world. I am convinced more than ever in my life that the best days of this country are still ahead of us. Carl Sandburg wrote a poem inspired by the Washington Monument, and I want to close with the line from that poem that meant the most to me. Nothing happens unless first a dream.
America has always been not only a country, but a dream. There has always been a general and unquestioned belief that here on this soil there would be demonstrated to mankind the blessings of freedom. It never occurred to Americans to ask whether they were going to survive. They had just begun to live.
Black and white, rich and poor, we all share one precious possession, and that is the name American. It is not easy to know what that means, but in part to be an American means to have been an outcast and a stranger.
This is our heritage and this is our true glory. There is little we Americans cannot do if only we can imagine ourselves wanting to do it. We are industrious, inventive, restless. We are conquerors of time and of distance. We are free-striding people with a confident, free-swinging stride that marks the American everywhere he goes upon this earth.
Americans have been a nation of exuberant optimists sniffing the air with a buoyant feeling that it is the early morning and that it is good to be alive.
As we look back on the 20th century, it can be said that we Americans have been in the arena. There is much to be proud of, but there is also still much to do. I've learned all over again that what Alexis de Tocqueville said is still true. America is great because America is good. Most of the people in this country are just good people. And they share a common love of freedom. And they love their families. And they desperately want to work. And they deserve a leadership and a direction in this country that will keep opportunity alive for all of them in the 21st century, and that will bring us together instead of taking us apart. I still believe that these things are possible. I still believe in the promise of tomorrow. And I still believe in a place called America.